Can we talk about Germany?
Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes for those keeping count. This is episode 329, and my next guest is Steve Sapato. Now, I was on his podcast, and this guy is just so dynamic, and we talked about everything, but today we're going to talk about the conversation. And in my last podcast with Tom Schwab, we kind of alluded into the conversation. It was based on podcasting, but here's the thing. Steve is a master of teaching you how to speak on stage. And one of those important things is to understand your audience, to have a conversation with them. So, welcome, Steve, and thanks for being here.
Thanks a lot, Rob. I really appreciate you having me on. This is going to be great. We're going to have a great time and we're going to help people understand more.
Yeah, I hope so. It's, I never thought, starting this podcast 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that it would, amount to this many episodes, to this many stories, to this many conversations. But every conversation that I have with a guest makes me understand their story better, makes me
Oh,
understand who they are as a person better. And so when I know your story, when I enjoy the conversation, I can refer you to somebody. I can get you more business. I can help you grow. But I think people forget that entrepreneurs, they're all transactional. They want the sale right now, and they forget about the long game.
Rob, that's we talked about that. Like I'm if you were to look on my LinkedIn, you'd find probably 50% of my posts on LinkedIn are stop spamming me, right? Stop. They go, hey, I love your profile. You have a fabulous profile. You have great success. Now buy my product. Here's what I'm offering. Quit it, right? Quit it. And one guy, it was really funny because I actually reposted his conversation. I took him out, I graded him out type thing. But after he did that, I went, because he said, are you interested in what I have to offer? And I went, no, you haven't had a conversation with me. We don't have any communication. We don't have any connection. I said, so you know what you can do with your question?
Hmm.
And like 3 days later, the automatic response comes back because he must be on auto. It
Yeah.
comes back and says, hey, so glad you were interested in what I have to offer. Let's do this and this and that. And you're like, you didn't read it, you didn't look at it, you didn't pay any attention to the fact that you ticked me off by sending me this crap.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
I
we
got
got to
one
have
to
conversations.
I got one from somebody. I don't even know who they were, but it says, "Hi Rob, I work with adventurous entrepreneurs who have incredible stories and ideas to share. Having conducted over 1,000 podcasts and supported over 500 podcasts of others, I love listening to stories. What's yours? Either share here or feel free to book time with me on my calendar." And so I respond, why would I book a time? I have my own podcast, been on hundreds of others and produced 50 books and he comes back with another sales pitch and I'm like,
Yeah,
dude, it's like it's all
that
cringe. I don't
that's
like
right.
it.
And we have to, if you're listening to this, you have to start understanding that we've gone away. AI has made it virtually impossible for you to sell online and be successful. And the reason for that is because we now are switching back to I need to get to know you. I have to have a conversation with you. I got a new podcast, Rob. That's the one you're just on, which is Know, Like, and Trust, right? Where success chases you. And the reason success chases you is because you're learning to reconnect to people. The
Mhm.
conversations we have, as Rob just said, the conversations we have let us get to know you. I had one of the guys, he said, okay, you can't use my products, but could you please send somebody as a referral? And you're like, I don't know you. I,
Right.
I can't send my people to you. How would I trust that you would take care of them?
Yeah.
And that's, I think so many people think just because you have a great product, you might have a fabulous product, you might have a crappy product, but you still have to make the real personal connection. It was probably 5 years ago, Rob. I'm at a networking event, and this lady was selling, I'll say knickknacks. I forget what it is, but advertising products. So she had all these advertising products, and she had done her 30-second elevator pitch about all the stuff she sold. And
Hmm.
so I said to her afterwards, I said, hey, we might want to connect because I might be interested in a couple things that you have to offer. I'm looking for one thing in particular. And suddenly she went into her sales tirade and started telling me 30 or 40 things that she has that she thinks I could use. And she didn't ask me what one thing I was looking for.
Right.
And that's the problem is she was so busy trying to sell me something that she didn't sell me anything.
Yeah. Or you get these emails that says, I can get you 60 leads a month. Okay. But you don't know anything about me.
Yeah.
I only accept one new client a month. What am I going to do with 60?
Yeah.
And most of them are probably going to be garbage that I got to,
Oh,
you know, field through that it's going to waste so much time.
oh man. Well, I had, like you say, Rob and I are on podcasts, and he's done three. I think I've done three, and I've got another one tonight at 4:30 type thing. And so we kind of get burned out sometimes. But I've been on such a roll this week. It's been great because I've had some phenomenal people on. And the reason I say that is because you get your eyes opened. I had one this morning, and we were talking about she can take companies. She lives over in the UK, and she takes companies from six figures and moves them to seven figures. She guarantees it in 3 months,
Wow.
right? So if you've got a company, you want to move it to seven figures from whatever you're doing, 200,000, 500,000. She guarantees she can help you do that in 3 months. I thought that was really cool. I said, I work with the small business people. I teach people who are making less than 50 grand a year to take home to their families how to make 100 grand a year, right? I said, so let me ask you the question. Can you help the people making 70,000 make 500,000? And without blinking, she said, no. I went, no. And she went, they can't afford my service. And I'm sitting there just paused, waiting for and she said, Steve, one of the things you'll find is the people who are broke because they have the wrong attitudes. She
Hmm.
said, I'll bet you struggle to get those people ever to sign up for your courses because they are locked into broke.
Hmm.
And then she went on to talk about how the people who are making 250,000 really know what it takes to make 200 and want to make that million and how they're willing to invest
Hmm.
in themselves, their companies, and really promote themselves out of that quagmire. And that, Rob, has opened my eyes to how much are people willing to pay? And the answer is let's have a conversation, find out what your dreams are, find out what you really want, find out how long you've wanted it, find out how important it is to you, and then how can we help you achieve it? Because I tell people all the time, I took a guy, probably 7 years ago, 8 years ago, when I was in California, and he wasn't even a client of mine. And we sat and we chatted over coffee. And I said, well, how do you do this? And he told me, and I went, you need to do this. And
Hmm.
he went, oh, I can't afford to do that. And I mean, minimal.
Hmm.
And looked at him. I said, you can't afford not to. I said, do you want to get here? And he went, yeah. I said, how long you been wanting to get? He said, I've been open 5 years. I need to get there. I went, then do this one thing, do it for 2 months, and then we'll talk again.
Hmm.
3 months later, we actually sat down over coffee again because that's what we did at our networking event. And I said, how'd it go? And he went, oh my God, I've doubled my business.
Hmm.
You know, one idea, one thought, one conversation with a meaningful relationship going. We were friends when I was in California. We haven't stayed friends because that's not how it works always.
Yeah.
But we were friends in California. We went out to coffee, we went out to lunch, and that one idea changed his life forever. When you're looking to make a difference in people's lives, sit down and listen to them, ask them questions.
Hmm.
I was just thinking of hiring a VA. Just today, I was talking to somebody, and I said, so tell me what you do. And of course, she's like, blee, 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 blee. And I actually, after about 45 seconds, I held up my hand like this. I went, stop, stop. And I had to say it 3 times before she finally paused. I went, you haven't asked me one question. She goes, what? You asked me what I do. And I went, yeah, but you didn't ask me what I do and how
Hmm.
you might help me. That's important. If you don't know what I do, you can't say all these things will help me because, quite frankly, after about the first 15 things you said, I stopped listening.
Yeah.
And so it's important that no matter where you are in this world, that you have conversations. I call them meaningful conversations, confident conversations. Public speaking changes your life because it changes your confidence level.
Hmm.
And I teach people all the time how to be more confident just by being better presenters, whether you're presenting to your kids, to your spouse, or to the company. You won't imagine how much your life changes, right, Rob? You know that.
And one of the things I think that entrepreneurs fail to do is be disruptors.
Oh,
When we're having a conversation with somebody, it's okay to butt in. I do this a lot. I butt in and I'll take over the conversation. And some people will call me an asshole for it. But here's the thing is that if you're confident in your ability to uh, bring about a conversation between two people or three people or 100 people, you're going to find that the majority of people are going to gravitate towards you and not consider you an asshole, but more of a knowledge bringer. And Trump does this all the time. And I know that, some people, I don't want to make this political. Some people don't like him, but he is a master disruptor. And when you
yeah.
watch him, when you carefully listen, he will guide the conversation to where he wants it to go. He will guide the people to listen. And some people say, "Well, Rob, that is just rude. I don't care if you don't like the man. I want you to listen to him. Learn, and start utilizing some of those skill sets that he has. And
You
and
want to you want to learn those conversation skills. You want to learn them because the first thing I do that all the time. Rob and I are truthfully, Rob and I are masters at interrupting a conversation. Why? Because we want it to go a different direction most of the time. Or I found the best thing you can do is when somebody's on their rant, there's somebody's on this, and let's say you completely disagree with them. You say, hold on, can I ask, hold on, can I ask a question? Hold on, can I ask a question? Because, trying to stop them when they're on a full runaway train is hard. And they'll finally say, okay, yeah, go ahead. And I go, my question is, and then you ask your question. That takes the conversation where you want it to go.
Mhm.
It accomplishes what you want it to do. And that's a skill that you need to learn. If you're not reading the right books, if you're not listening to the right audiobooks, if you're not watching the right videos, if you're not attending, a whole bunch of people have free webinars that are meaningful webinars. A whole bunch of people have webinars that are all bullshit about their story, right? You want to hear, I mean, I've listened to, I had somebody say I can teach you how to be a great speaker, and all in, and I'll start it off with a great 45-minute or 50-minute talk. So tune in. And the first 23 minutes in, 23, I was timing it. They were still talking about their story. I
Mhm.
don't care about their story. I don't care how hard they had it in life. I don't care whether they peed their pants when they were 3. That's not what I care about. I care about, you said you could help me be a better presenter and speaker. 23 minutes in, they were still telling their boring story because they didn't even know how
Mhm.
to interact with their video audience.
Yeah.
And just impossible to believe that a guy who's trying to teach you how to be a better presenter has no idea how to be a good presenter. Now, I
Yeah.
don't know how many people stayed on the webinar, if they stayed at all, but I'm going to digress because there's a lot of good webinars out there. Get on, listen to a 30-minute part of their talk, grow from what you can learn from these people. Rob, do you ever do webinars? Do you ever do free intros to your stuff at all?
The last time I did a webinar was probably about 10 years ago. And it just turned me off because I was invited on to this webinar, and the person that was in charge of this wouldn't shut up. And I'm like, when is it my turn? All I want to do is talk for about 5 minutes. And I start talking, and she cuts me off. I'm like, all right, forget it. I'm out.
Yeah, wow.
And she goes, wow, at the end of this thing, she goes, wow, wasn't that great, Rob? And I'm like, no, not really. And, and she forgot to turn the thing off, so everybody starts laughing. I'm like, hey, I barely said a word. But
Yeah,
one of the
yeah,
things,
go ahead.
one of the things that I think a lot of people lack when they get up on stage, yes, it's maybe it's stage fright, but here's the thing: is that yeah, I suffered from it from a little bit too. Early on, my very first speech, I got up there, I was confident, I knew my stuff, I was talking to people there, I was, answering a lot of questions, and then I go to Vegas, and I'm in this crowd, and I'm told to stand behind the podium. But froze up, couldn't think what I was going to say. Good thing I had a cheat sheet because I read most of it, and people loved it, and they thought I planned the whole thing. No, I really flubbed it. But I've gone to events where people will just read off the slides, and I'm like, you're supposed to be this guru that everybody can appreciate. You could have just emailed me those notes. I didn't
That's
save me
right.
three
That's right.
thousand dollars
Send
from
me the
coming to,
slide deck. That's right.
here's the thing. We all have these phones now. Okay. If there's something that you want to sell, if there's something that's very important that, maybe you have a book like my book legacy. Make a QR code. That's the only slide that goes up there. You tell your story. And occasionally, if you want to, point to the QR code. People are going to get curious. They're going to take pictures. They're going to go to the link that's on the. You don't even have to sell if you don't know how to sell.
That's
Just
right.
tell your story and get the heck off the stage. I
Get
watched that.
off the stage.
I watched someone do that, and they never even mentioned the QR code that was on the screen, and yet they sold $30,000 worth of stuff.
But that's because they were good, they were entertaining, and they got their message across. What most people don't understand, the reason we have people who are afraid of speaking in public, the reason we have stage fright is because we are told to do things a certain way at a certain time, and you got to do this. And the answer is no. What you have to be is comfortable with you. I tell people that all the time. If you want to get better at public speaking, just start videoing yourself. I run a little golf cart out here at my retirement community, and every once in a while I'll just flip it on and hold it away from me and do a 3 minute little video on hey, I had a great day playing pickleball. I did this, I did that, and I post it. I post it. Whether it's a stupid comment, whether it's a good comment, whether somebody driving by and I had to wave. What you need to do is get comfortable with your voice, get comfortable with how you look, get comfortable with how you sound, and then start learning what makes you nervous and what you sound like nervous. As Rob just said, one of the things I've heard people for decades, right? Because I've been speaking for 45 years. And what I've heard from
You
people
don't
is,
look like you're 45.
I know, isn't that crazy? And people say, you can't take notes on stage. I'll tell people, take your notes up, they go, well, you can't take your notes on stage. I go, who told you that?
I know.
There's, if you watch most of the great speakers, if they're not taking their notes, they have a thing. It's a new thing now, Rob. Have you heard of it? It's called a teleprompter. Yeah. And those people have clear plastic teleprompters that you can't see from this side, but they see all the words and all the writing from the other side. That's called technology. And they have their notes with them all the time. All the time. I got to tell you this. And I've turned Michael Bay. He did the Autobots or the
Yeah,
Bugs
yeah,
or something.
Transformers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody was just doing, I think it was, I can't remember his name. He's one of the great speakers. And he was showing that everybody suffers from stage fright at times.
Mm-hmm.
They had Michael Bay on this giant stage. They had giant crowd in front of him. So at some big event, and they had the whole back thing was his videos of cuts from his movies. And they were asking him questions. And he was standing there with his phone in his hand, talking out towards the crowd. And then he kind of froze up. He went, well, and he said, well, the words are coming out all wrong. So I guess I won't be using that. I'll just have to wing it. So he was using, right, a teleprompter the whole time, and then it quit working. And he couldn't finish. He answered like two more sentences. And when the guy kept trying to prompt him, trying to get him into his head, because now he's out of his head, right? He's lost his mind. He gets panicked because he lost his place on his presentation. And he turned around and walked off the stage, right? A multimillionaire walked off the stage because he lost his place on his teleprompter. Okay. Now, is it good or bad? It doesn't matter. I'm using him as an example that you can mess up real bad and they'll still ask you to come back if your first part was good enough.
Yeah.
If you have something worthwhile to say, because everybody understands we mess up.
Yeah.
We all mess up. And that's important that when you get in front of people, you look at yourself and you say, my wife tells me all the time, Rob, you can't be embarrassed. And I go, nope, that's probably right. 99.9% of the time, you can't embarrass me. I don't know what you'd have to do to embarrass me.
Well,
But you can.
here's a trick that I picked up from somebody. We all have these phones.
Oh,
You
yeah.
get up on stage and you get through, some of your speech, and maybe you mess up. Okay, just say, "Hey, I'm going to take a picture of the crowd. Okay, I'm going to take a selfie." And then you got your notes on your phone. You scroll through.
That's right.
And then you pick it up where you left off. And then,
You got your outline somewhere. I've seen people lay the outline on the stage,
mhm,
right? So they know if they walk from this way to that way, and then the second level is when they walk back this way, and they can glance down at the stage. Of course, everybody out there doesn't see the notes on the stage. They
right.
don't know what they are, right? And so there's all kinds of ways that you can learn. Now, the challenge with that, and the reason people are told not to take their notes on stage is because so many people read from them. Just like Rob said, they read their uh, PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint is what it's called.
Mhm.
And we can teach you how to be great presenters, how to win the day every single time, how to be powerful, how to be confident. That's what a great conversationalist can do. And they can do it no matter where they are. They can do it in front of one person, they can do it in front of 5,000 people, they can do it on a stage, they can do it in a boardroom. Oh, man. And we wish we could convey to you how important it is for you to improve your life by getting better at your presentation skills, regardless
You
of
know,
what you want to
and
do.
having a podcast, interviewing people, that makes you better. 300 and some episodes, and I'm more confident when I get on these things than I've ever been. When I first started, maybe I sketched out a few notes that I wanted to touch on. I've always kept it a real conversation. But as I've done these, I used to read off my intro and this and that. And I'm like, I don't do any of that anymore. I just get on and ad lib and
Cool.
go through it and go where the conversation goes. And
Absolutely.
and and I've taken that a lot when I get up on stage. Before I even get up on stage, I've had conversations with people in the audience. Maybe we're in the hallways chit-chatting. I want to find out about them. And then I intertwine that conversation when I get up on stage, because I want to make their story part of my story.
Yes.
And so when I'm up there, you know, yes, I have a general outline of what I'm going to say, but I don't keep it, the same where if you came to me next week to hear my speech, it's different because everybody that I'm picking up out of the state, the audience is intertwining with that conversation and making it unique.
I don't think most people appreciate how important conversations are. Like Rob just said, when I'm doing a keynote, I try and go to the cocktail party the night before. I try and talk to the people who hired me, but I try and talk to other key people. And I always ask these questions, which is, what's the most weirdest thing that happened to your company this year? What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to somebody in your company this year? And if they've got some good stories, they go, oh, you got to hear this one, and they tell you this story. And I go, who did that happen to? They go, Bob. And I go, is Bob here tonight? And they go, yeah, Bob's right over there. I go find Bob and I say, hey, Bob, I'm the speaker for tomorrow. And I heard you had something embarrassing happen. And Bob, who is probably more like Rob and I, which is hard to get embarrassed, right? He just takes it in stride. He goes, oh, yeah, that happened to me. And at the moment, it was embarrassing. But hey, I lived through it. We go, hey, Bob, can I use your story tomorrow when I talk? And he's like, yeah, everybody loves to be a celebrity, even a mini celebrity.
Right.
And you, like what Rob says, you weave that in and you can say, hey, by the way, I heard something strange happen at your company this year. Is there a guy named Bob here? And of course, everybody's like, Bob. And then you can have a great conversation about Bob
Mhm.
without him ever talking and interrupting your conversation.
Yeah.
Your conversation in front of an audience, your conversation is two-way while being only delivered one way. It's
Mhm.
important that you understand that your conversation happens here, not here. And so when you're having that, I mean, I tell people all the time, all speaker coaches teach people how to be storytellers.
Mhm.
90% of the storytellers are boring as hell because they don't know how to involve the audience. That's why I invented a thing, Rob knows this, called storytizing. And it's taking your speaker story, putting it into your speaker blender. And when you pull it out, it now is your story using their memories, their experiences, and their emotions.
Mhm.
It changes everything on how your audience will relate to you. Oh, gosh, is it swell. You guys want to get better at speaking? Reach out to me, Steve at stevesapato.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me. And I would love to have a conversation with you on how you can be superior conversationalist, a great speaker, a great spokesperson, how to win this boardroom when if you're a CEO or an executive, how to win those conversations. That's valuable to you. I mean,
I've
boost.
I've been to seminars where I've listened to a speaker and I thought, oh, this is great. It's very interesting. He's entertaining. 5 years later, I'll see the same person telling the same speech.
Yep.
And I'm like, what? Nothing's happened in 5 years? You couldn't have made it better?
Yeah, but he's still making his 200 grand because every company doesn't know that.
Yeah, it's like, though, he could have at least incorporated some new stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and some as in everything we do, you guys all know that when you go to a party, you've got those two or three people that in your life that if you go to the party and there they are, you actually try and avoid them because they're going to tell you the same story, right? I got a guy in my park here that tells me the same story every time he sees me. And I mean, sometimes we've seen each other 2 nights in a row. And he still tells me, "Hey, do you remember the time that I tell you my band once did this? Did I tell you my friends once?" Yeah, yeah, you told me. Well, let me finish the story. And then they keep telling you the same story. So understand that some people will never change that story. Some speakers will never change their story because what I just saw this published somewhere. There's like something like 67,000 speaking opportunities every day just in America.
wow.
67,000. Okay. So imagine that the top companies, let's say there's 5,000 top companies, right? From whatever's out there, right? 5,000 top companies. That means this person could talk 20 times a year, and it would take him something like 100 years to talk to half those companies. So he can keep his same stories that he's comfortable with, that he's boring to death if you heard him twice. But if you've never heard him twice, it's a good talk. So just be aware if you're learning how to tell stories, you can't go to the same places, you can't go around the same people
Right.
because you're going to bore us. And we're going to avoid trying to talk to you.
Yeah,
And what a shame.
and that's the reason why I think a lot of entrepreneurs should try to be a guest on someone's podcast or many podcasts.
You want to learn
Then
how
you
to
can
be a
share
great
your stories.
podcaster? You talk to Rob. You want to learn how to be a great podcaster? Reach out to Rob and say, "Hey, would you help me become a podcaster? You're thinking about being a podcast. You have a topic. You have something you want to get out. You probably shouldn't do it on your own podcast very much, but you can weave it in like I've done with my speaking. You can weave it in,
Yeah.
but talk about them. You want to be a great podcaster? Rob can teach you how to be a great podcaster.
Oh, and I can help them write their book. But here's the thing is that when you're trying to write a book, maybe the first one or two chapters are about your background. The rest need to be about stories on how you helped somebody. And especially lawyers. Because I really don't give a crap what school you went to. I don't care what degree or you know that you were the top in your class. You could have been the bottom of the class. I don't Nobody cares. What they want to know is, did you go through school? Did you get your degree? Yes. Okay. How can you help somebody? There's your story. And
Yep.
I know that I simplified that, but that's mostly everybody. When people come to me, they say, Rob, do you have a college degree? I'm like, no, but you're
Why?
doing all these great things. Yeah, yeah, I never let something hinder me. I just kept going.
I tell people, Rob, all the time. I go, you know what? I'm $10,000 an hour for my keynote talk, and people go 10,000. Some are like, that's not very much, and some people are like, that's a ton,
Yeah.
right? I just say that's what I've been charging for forever. I'm comfortable with that. I'm happy with that, right? But here's what you'll learn, right? In all of that is that that's a lot to some people, and it's not hardly anything to another person.
Hmm.
When we talk about how to get your book out there, you need to get your book out there, okay? And when he says you got to talk about other things, think about other people's. Stephen King does a great job of storytizing this whole thing. So he talks about this character, then he explains the character, then he does a whole scene from the character's background, and then he brings you back to the current.
Hmm.
That's what you have to do when you write. You have to always involve the people who you're talking to. So many books that people send me their book, right? They go, "Hey, Steve, I want you to read my book." Great. And I get about two chapters in, and it's like Rob said, you're like, that's bad. The very first conglomerate where I was one of 20 authors, I think, right? A massive dose of motivation, something that popped in my head. And that's from 2010. So that's 15 years ago. And somebody said, would you like to write one with Les Brown? I went, yeah, man. And it turns out after we paid our $1,500 to be part of that book, right? Les Brown wasn't even part of it. He was on the front cover or the back cover or something. He didn't write nothing in it, right? But he had his picture on it. So he got probably a lot of the money that came from it. But there were 20 authors. Now, 20 authors at $1,000 a piece is 20,000, but 15, 30, somebody made $30,000 putting this conglomerate book together. But here's what was important about that. I was used to being a speaker and I was used to being a storyteller, and I have taught college courses. And when he talked about, I'm going to come back to remind me, Rob, about the money in college. But I was like, okay, so I wrote mine talking about how it is to be successful. How do you get your dreams? And when I got the final published copy of the book, the other 19 had written their story. 19 chapters of boring as shit talking about them. They never talked about anything else. They talked about their story. And I went, well, I'm even ashamed to be with this book because it was a massive dose of motivation. And they didn't motivate anybody because they thought if I tell my story, I'll motivate people. Mm-hmm. No, that's not what motivates them. And when I was doing that, Rob, the reason I got into that was because when we talk about what it costs, so how much are you going to pay Steve Zapato to learn how to be a great speaker? Well, let's say $10,000. That'd be cool. Go ahead and pay me $10,000. I'll take it. But $10,000. You say I can't do that. Here's what I'll tell you. You pay me $10,000, and then you make between $100,000 and $150,000 every year speaking in public. Mm-hmm. How much is that worth? You spent how much on your college education? What did they promise you? Oh yeah, they didn't promise you even to get a job. And if you got a job, it might have been for 20 or 30,000. You spent $100,000 for an education, and they gave you a job making $30,000. Mm-hmm. How does that work out for you? Because that would be okay. I charge you $10,000 for my speaking gig, and then the next year you make $3,000. Sounds like a good deal to me, doesn't it? No, that's what you pay for your college degree. You don't. That's what it is. Anyway, I got my college degree, and it's like, boy, that was really worth it.
Yeah, and it gets me because everything I've done over the last 30 years as an entrepreneur has all been merit based.
Yes.
And now Trump goes, yeah, we're all going to be merit based, and I'm like, finally.
Yeah, it's going to work out.
It's and like I said, I don't like to bring politics into my podcast, but the thing is that we're living in an age where everybody gets triggered. Everybody, so why not trigger them even more? Okay, I'm very sarcastic. So I'm going to get on stage and I'm going to talk about how my sarcasm is going to work for me, how it's going to be, and so people say, "Well, Rob, you can't be an entrepreneur and be sarcastic. You can't reject customers. Why not?"
Yeah, why not?
I use it as rejection marketing. So I'm going to eliminate all the problems right off the top of all the whiny, bitchy, complaining customers I don't want to deal with. And those people that are left, maybe the 1 or 2%ers, they're going to make my life so much pleasurable. They're going to give me so much money. They're going to make me happy, and I can have vacations and get rid of all the problem people up front. And what do you got? You got a better business.
Do it. Hey, I wrote down two things. Rob and we're peas in a pod, because I introduce myself a lot of times as, hey, I'm Steve Zapato. I'm an expert in sarcasm, and I'm also a public speaker, right? And that's what we do. We put that out there. But we were talking about something, and I'd written it down earlier. We talk about having notes and how you do things. If you watch the talk shows, every talk show host has notes on the person they're interviewing. Mm-hmm. Notes. They ask them this question and they cross it off. They may not cross it off, but they ask them that, and then they'll take that postcard and throw it over there. Mm-hmm. Every late night talk show host who you think is really good is working from a script. So just be aware, whatever we do, whatever we try and help you do, we want you to learn that there's other ways than what the experts have told you over the years. When he talks about us not being political, we're tired of hiding behind stuff. We're tired of being threatened, quite mm-hmm. frankly. If I said the wrong pronoun, I'm sorry, right? I'm sorry I said the wrong pronoun. But you shouldn't hold up everything because if somebody walked up to me as I'm speaking and said, Steve, you're an asshole, I'd go, hey, thanks for being out there. And I'd go on with my talk. If I walk into your restaurant and I say, excuse me, ma'am, and it's like, oh, I go by he, her, he, him, or whatever they might go by, right? And I go, oh, okay. And I go, can I order this? And they go, well, you have to apologize to me for misnaming me. And I go, oh, F off, right? Because because that's the way some people want to get triggered.
Yeah,
It's not
on
that way.
LinkedIn, my pronoun has been Mr. Sarcasm for years.
Yeah.
And people are like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
Not a real pronoun. I'm like, F off.
Yeah, that's right. But you can see we have a great time. We do really well in our personal and private lives, and we're also successful in our public life. And that's important for you to understand
Well,
is
and the
as
thing is that you and I know the secret, and I'm going to tell everybody, it's our personality never changes. We are what you see on the podcast. We are what you see in real life. We are what you see on the internet. We're not walking on eggshells. We're not, oh my God, look, he's Mr. Nice Guy here and he's Mr. Asshole over. It's never going to happen. I'm always an asshole. Accept it.
that's what I've said again, like you say, decades where people go, well, Steve, you're kind of an asshole. I go, yep. And they go, well, what if somebody calls you an asshole? I said, well, they're obviously mistaken. I said, but here's the catch. If one person calls me an asshole, they're mistaken. If 10 out of 10 people call me an asshole, I'm probably an asshole. And so you got to figure out who are you and where are you? You're probably in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's
Mhm.
it. That's what the truth of it. If you're not around your people, go where your people are.
I like that expression. If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to leave the room.
Yes,
I'm like,
absolutely.
yeah, it's like,
Because that'll
oh
frustrate the hell
shit,
out of you, won't it?
I walked into the wrong building again. And sometimes that's how I feel. And I get up on stage and I'm like, oh, why am I here? There's nobody in this room that's gonna buy from me. And but I still share the stories. I still try to be nice.
They
And
paid
they're
us to
they're
be there.
paying
We do
me.
our job.
I,
And
you
that's
know,
what you'll learn too. Do your job. Sometimes it's not always happy. Sometimes it's not always working. Sometimes it's not always successful. Do your job. I was training a bunch of managers years ago. They were engineers, and the problem with the engineering company was real simple. The engineers were losing all of the people, all the engineers who worked under them. So these 30 engineering managers were losing the engineers who were working under them because they weren't nice people, right? And so when I was brought in to try and teach the engineers how to be how to be nicer, right? How to have better conversations, how to do this, how to do that. And one of the engineers stood up and said, why do I have to do this? We pay these assholes to do their job. Why don't they just do their job and shut up? I said, you know what? I totally agree. Unfortunately, the world doesn't work like that.
mhm.
So whether you like it or not, if somebody hires you to do a job, you have to do the job to the best of your ability and grow into it if the job changes along the way. Otherwise, they're going to leave you behind.
Yeah,
And that's important for you to understand. No matter what you're doing now,
yeah.
grow into it better. And if you're wanting to change, Rob said this, alluded to this earlier. If you're wanting to be this person, you have to become that person. And how do you do that, Rob? You learn, you grow, you read, you listen, and you attend things like this podcast.
And you have integrity. I mean, there's been battles where, I mean, I've published a lot of books and I've dealt with a lot of people. And there was one, I won't name names because he'll probably listen and call me up.
But it was Bob.
We had a battle, and there was a problem with his inability to connect contact me at sane hours. I would
Oh,
get texts at 2 o'clock in the morning. Hey, I want to make a change. I made so many changes that my team said, Rob, can we fire this guy? And I said, just be patient. It's almost over.
yeah.
And I finished the job, and he liked it. But we learned a few things, and you know, we started putting parameters on when clients could contact us. what changes could occur and when. And we had to start charging extra for all the interruptions. And I didn't have that in place because, for 48 customers, it wasn't a problem.
Yeah,
That 50th, or, you're always going to have somebody that wants to take, and you give them an inch, they take a mile. And
that's
so,
right.
you know, as somebody with integrity, I could have just told him to F off and said, look, I'm keeping your money. Your project is getting tossed. Hit the pike. I don't care. But we finished the project. We made it great. He loved it. We didn't make any money on the job, but that's integrity.
Yeah,
And
exactly
so,
right.
yes, people can say, hey, you know what? Yes, Rob is an asshole. But the one thing he does, he has your back. He will finish all the jobs that you give him. And you know, if you want to leave him afterwards, fine, but go to him because you can trust him. And it goes back to know, like, and trust.
That's right.
And so yeah, I'm not always the nicest guy to deal with. And I'm very sarcastic, but I won't let you down. And that's one of the things about me. And maybe it's because, I was a Boy Scout, and I helped the Boy Scouts, and I just have this, you know,
It's an honor thing.
yeah,
Yeah. That's it's important that when you work with somebody, you know them well. Now, and I've worked with people that I didn't really like. I don't have to like everybody I work with, but what I have to do is trust them to get the job done in the best possible way for my people.
right.
And that's vital. If I do, I got speaker talks coming up in September, Rob. I'm going to have 12 speakers on there doing a TEDx type talk so they can get their speaker reels, so they can get the experience on stage, so they can gain for knowledge from 6 or 8 of us who are going to be sponsoring the thing and helping them market their new book or helping them write their new book, that type of thing. And what I want you to understand is when those people come to us, we have to have the integrity that all the people who are coming to help them are absolutely 100% on their side. So when they're spending their 10, 20, $30,000 for different services, that they know that Rob can get them a book done on time. Steve can teach them how to be a great public speaker. We have to look at how these people will bring together their services to make these people more successful. And we have to trust that they will do a great job.
Mhm.
If and I went back to the very first time I did this back in 2018, I think it was, and my book person, Rob, was a terrible person. They didn't know what they were doing. They came to me. I believed in them. They were in one of my networking groups. People had said, "Oh yeah, they're great." And when I talked to those people later, I went, "So when she helped you with your project?" They went, "Oh well, I never saw her work." I went, you recommended her. Well, yeah, because she's in our networking group. And so I've learned to qualify too, in terms of who can help them. And so they had helped 2 people with books and they were a disaster. And these people, they knew me well enough that they forgave me,
Mhm.
but they couldn't, I will never work with that book person again. You're like, how could you do that to these people? Lack of integrity, all the stuff that they didn't know when they pretended to know. No, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
We now, and Rob is one of them, we vet our people completely. If you need to get ahead in life, reach out to one of us. We will point you to the right person who can help you achieve your dreams. That's
Yeah.
what this is all about.
And if you don't like sarcasm for whatever reason, I don't know why you would not like sarcasm,
No,
but
why?
if you don't like it, maybe we're not the type of person for you, but we will refer you to somebody that is, lacks the sarcasm, and maybe you'll like them better.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I always say, if you like boring, I got somebody I can introduce you to,
Yeah, to me, it doesn't.
and and they're still good at their job.
Yeah, people that don't get sarcasm, I don't get them.
Yeah, we don't get the people who don't get us. That's the problem.
Yeah, they're like, sarcasm, that's the lowest form of whatever. I'm like,
Yeah, lowest form of entertainment, sarcasm. I go, shut up.
yeah, okay, you're gone. So I know that you had mentioned your website before. Share it again, and
Steve at stevesapato.com. You can get me on my email, stevesapatoseminars.com. if you want to look and see what we're doing, how you can get involved. You can become a sponsor of the Speaker Talks thing in September. You can become one of the people who speaks on stage. We will train you for 2 months on how to become a great speaker. We will give you a speaker reel. We will give you still shots of yourself on stage as well as sitting in an audience. We will take good care of you so that when you decide to be a speaker, you hit the ground running with everything that it takes to become a success.
And there you go, people. Head on over, check him out, and I think that you'll find that he has integrity, just like I do. You're going to get stuff done, and you're going to learn to be a better speaker. So, till the next episode, see you later.
God bless.